Has anyone ever considered how a potential move to Madrid for Kylian Mbappe could affect Jude Bellingham, who has become the main scorer and star in the absence of a striker in the Los Blancos squad? Not to mention, would Jude have even moved to Madrid if Mbappe was signed in 2022 or 2023? Let's imagine both of them in the Los Blancos jerseys at the beginning of this season. Superstar Mbappe and talented Bellingham from Dortmund. Who would bring more, even in terms of status? We would hardly have gotten a third contender for the Ballon d'Or in the face of Bellingham under such circumstances. Do you agree? Yet Mbappe was so close to moving to Madrid. Let's take a look at other big transfers that by the mere fact of their failure have influenced the history of football. Let's not consider various rumors and speculations, but focus only on those transfers that were in the process but ultimately failed, often at the last moment. This is the top 10 failed super transfers that could have changed history. Let's start with Sergio Aguero, the best goal scorer in City's history, who could have ended up at Chelsea after Atletico. Couldn't caught the attention of the Blues back in 2009 when he scored 2 goals against them in the Champions League group stage. For his age, he is one of the most important and best quality players in the world, said Chelsea manager at the time, Ancelotti. The club felt the need to refresh their attack as Drogba and Anelka were already in their 30s. In 2010, it was decided to offer a long-term contract to the 22-year-old Atletico striker. However, the problem was that the Spanish club would only let him go for 40 million plus another 5 that Aguero's agent wanted, while Abramovich initially planned to spend no more than 30 million on the forward. Even Aguero's nice words did not help in this case. Chelsea are a great club. They have become one of the most feared in Europe over recent years. London would be a really amazing city to live in. As well, myself and my wife could be really happy there. The decisive attempt to buy Aguero was made in January 2011. BBC reported that the London club offered 52 million to buy Sergio and defender Diego Godin. However, by that time, Manchester City had also come in for Aguero, making the situation competitive. In the end, when Atletico agreed to sell Aguero for the same 40 million, Chelsea withdrew from negotiations. A few days later, they signed another striker and the central defender, Fernando Torres for 58 million and David Luiz for 25. The logic behind that was simply that Torres seemed like a more reliable option at the time, having already adapted to English football and scoring goals for Liverpool. However, Chelsea's record transfer at the time turned out to be a failure. Meanwhile, Aguero, whom Abramovich was reluctant to spend money on, went on to make history at Manchester City. In 2021, Chelsea made another attempt to sign Aguero, who was already in his veteran years. It seems that the Blues have been regretting their poor choice all these years. On the spot number 9 are 2 failed transfers to Manchester United. Gareth Bale and Toni Kroos were both potential signings for the club at different times. It would have been an easy decision to come to United as a Southampton player. You always dream of playing for great clubs. However, I made the decision based on the desire to continue playing. At the time, many players my age would have been looking for money and wanting to move to bigger clubs. Gareth had an excellent season in the Championship for Southampton in 06-07, with 5 goals and 11 assists in 38 games, while playing as a left back. He had a good offer from United, but there was serious competition at the club at the time, with Evra, Heinz, Sylvester on the left in defense, and Giggs and Cristiano occasionally playing as a left winger. The young Bale had every chance of sitting on the bench, so he made a wise decision and gradually worked his way up to the top level through Tottenham. And when United came after him again, he said no, signing a contract with Madrid. And he was right again. In 2013, a glorious era of United came to an end, while in Madrid it was just the beginning. Thanks in part to Gareth, who greatly helped in winning several trophies. Toni Kroos could have ended up at United in 2014. David Moyes had come to see me and the contract had basically been done, but the Moyes was fired and Louis van Gaal came in, which complicated matters. There was another priority for the German: family comfort. The move would not have been that complicated. After all, we only had one child at the time, 7 months old. It would have all worked out. But the new coach was a real problem because Louis van Gaal, who became the United manager in July 2014, didn't see Kroos in his first 11. And 3 days later, Toni signed a contract with Madrid. I don't have these what-if thoughts because there are no real answers to them. The only thing I can say with certainty is that I probably wouldn't have won the Champions League 3 times with Manchester United. All in all, Kroos should thank Van Gaal, who thought he was no good, yet the rest is history. In 8th place, we have Franck Ribery, the king of Munich, who almost ended up at Madrid in the late 2000s, which could have changed the balance of power in the fight for the main European trophy in 2010s. Ribery in his youth played for Galatasaray in Turkey, where his incredible speed earned him the name Ferrari Ribery. Later, he became a star at Marseille, and after the 2006 World Cup, where he destroyed defenders with his skills, he was expected to change clubs. Lyon, Arsenal and Madrid were interested in the winger, yet Ribery stayed in the south of France for another year before unexpectedly choosing Bayern Munich. This was surprising because at the time, Bayern was not the team they are now. From 2002 to 2005, they were focused on building the Allianz Arena instead of making breakthrough transfers, which resulted in them losing their status as a club that could win the Champions League. They needed to catch up. Moreover, in the 06-07 season, they even failed to finish in the top 3 in the Bundesliga. In the summer of 2007, a whole group of players was brought to Munich, and Ribery's transfer was the most expensive on the list, 30 million euros. "We want to build a team around him," said Bayern president Uli Hoeneß. Franck immediately justified their hopes by consistently scoring goals and becoming the engine of the German machine. In 2009, almost all the top clubs in Europe were after him. If Kaká is meant to be worth 120 million, then Franck Ribery is worth 150. Hoeneß inflated his price. Real Madrid wanted him the most and had the money to buy him. The Madrid club pressured Bayern through the press, and Zidane took everything in his hands. Franck is a fantastic player, and his place is at Real. Ribery initially remained silent, but on July the 2nd, he gave an interview to one of Europe's leading football media outlets, El Equipe. "It's all decided. I want to leave. My new club will be Real. I'm not considering other options." Later, Franck said that he had a bad relationship with the head coach, Van Gaal, which was one of the reasons he wanted to leave Munich. In 2009, Real Madrid bought Ronaldo but didn't give up on the idea of getting Ribery. However, a tectonic shift was happening in Munich. They bought several more top players, including Robben and central forward Gomez. Now the crisis was behind them, and the team was ready to go for the Champions League trophy. This made it less of a reason for Ribery in change of clubs. In 2010, Ribery's agent almost sold him to Real Madrid. We invited Franck and his wife Wahiba to a dinner. We had a great evening, and around midnight, Wahiba said, "Franck, we're staying in Munich." It was that damn simple. Just 3 years after that, Bayern Munich won the Champions League. Throughout his career at Germany, Franck won 23 trophies. I assume this number will be greater in Spain, yet Ribery himself doesn't regret anything. The 7th is Totti's transfer to, again, Real Madrid. This was one of the main transfer sagas of the 2000s, similar to what is happening now with Mbappe. The saga began in 2004 when the captain of Roma was 27 years old, the perfect age to try himself at a mega level. Totti had won the Italian championship, but it was clear to him and everyone around him that he couldn't expect more in Rome. Real Madrid was ready to give Totti everything except for the number 10 jersey. They couldn't take it from Figo and the captain's armband. Raul was sacred. But the most important thing was that the Royal Club set itself the task of winning all tournaments every season. This was the most important factor in favor of the transfer, and Roma could never afford to pay Totti's salary of $8 million a year. On the contrary, the Italian club was going through a process resembling a massive sale. "I don't want to leave, but Roma must fight for the title." In these words from Totti, you could sense the idea: either keep a strong team, or I will leave too. The 04-05 season, on one hand, should have strengthened the captain's resolve to leave, and the offer from Madrid was still on the table. Roma began to fall apart, with 4 coaches changing from August to June. On the other hand, Totti's role became massive. He became the sun around which all other elements of the system revolved around. And in the summer of 2005, Spalletti took over Roma and moved Totti forward, creating maximum comfort for his best player. Score goals and don't think about anything else. It became difficult to leave for something more unusual. Moreover, Totti was already a legend in Rome, and the story was unfolding very beautifully. One club, one football love. Feelings were stronger than desire for money and trophies. Real Madrid was the only team that I could have gone to play for, the only team it could have been, Totti admitted after retiring from football. What could have been at Real Madrid? Yes, more trophies, but where is the guarantee that Totti would have played alongside other great players detached from his home? Zidane examined beautifully explained the reasons for Francesco's fatal transfer to Real Madrid. Totti is what every child dreams of being when they grow up. A fan became a champion that became a symbol that became a legend. Well, it needs no more explanation. In 6th place are two superstars who could have ended up at Blackburn in their time. We are talking about Robert Lewandowski, you may have heard of him, and Zinedine Zidane. Only football geeks know this for sure. In 1995, Blackburn were at their peak, having dethroned United as Premier League champions. They were preparing to make their debut in the Champions League and overall establish themselves as a top club. Manager Kenny Dalglish took notice of a young talent from Bordeaux as a potential reinforcement. Zinedine was not yet a star at the time, just starting to play for the French national team. But Blackburn had the status and the money. Why wouldn't a young Frenchman join a strong English club following the footsteps of Eric Cantona? However, the transfer fell through. As the story goes, for a reason that now sounds like a joke. Why do we need Zidane if we have Team Sherwood, said the owner of Blackburn. Indeed, Sherwood was also a central midfielder. He was included in the Premier League team of the season. At the time, he may have seemed no less talented than Zidane, although more likely due to heavily distorted club patriotism. Many of you probably only heard of Sherwood for the first time now, while everybody knows who Zidane has become without moving to the Premier League, even the housewives. Blackburn lost their status in the 90s and in the early 2000s were even fighting for the survival in the Premier League. Nevertheless, the option of moving to this club seemed quite interesting for the Polish striker Robert Lewandowski. We've already mentioned that at the early stages of his career, Lewy didn't look like a future superstar. Even in the Polish league, he wasn't known as a dominant scorer. Interest in Robert came from several, but not top clubs. Blackburn, however, had a very specific and persistent interest. I met with Sam Allardyce. It was in Poland after one game. I thought he was a good guy, an excellent coach. I wanted to go to England to see the city, the training ground. My expectations were positive, but I couldn't fly because of the volcano eruption. Yes, the eruption of an Icelandic volcano with an unpronounceable name that covered air travel in Europe with a huge cloud prevented Lewandowski's transfer to Blackburn from being completed. Otherwise, everyone was in favor of the move and he could have signed a contract as early as April. By the summer, when the volcano calmed down, Dortmund became interested in the Pole and he switched negotiations with Borussia, where he became a world football legend. You know, I have some thoughts about these two stories. Blackburn could have established themselves as an English top club if they had acquired Zidane in the mid-90s instead of betting on their own guy Sherwood, and Shearer wouldn't have left for Newcastle if he had been supplied with balls by French genius. They would have definitely won a couple more trophies with such a duo. And in the 2010s, they wouldn't have been relegated from the Premier League if they had signed Lewandowski. On the other hand, Lewy is currently showing that he's a player of one league. The Bundesliga record holder struggles to score many goals in Spain. I admit that if he had ended up in England in 2010, he could have turned into just a good forward like Ivan Toney or maybe Jamie Vardy, 15 to 20 goals per season. A very likely scenario. At number 5 is Xavi. The legendary Barca midfielder could have become a legend of Munich if he had left for Bayern twice, once in 2008. By the end of the 2000s, Barca was on the verge of bankruptcy and Xavi was among those who were considered for sale to improve the financial situation. At the time, Xavi was considered a quality midfielder, but not a great one. Xavi himself was not against the transfer to Bayern. That was pretty serious. There was even a meeting with the coach and FIFA agent Franck. Pep just grabbed me after that and told me not to go, that in his mind the team resolved around certain players, and I was one of them. Under Guardiola's leadership, Xavi became the main assistant of not only Barcelona, but also La Liga on the same position in central midfield. He gave the most assists in both La Liga and the Champions League and became a legend. Xavi controlled the game and tempo, his teammates and opponents. The football world had never seen him like this before. he played a crucial role in winning the treble. Many believe that Xavi should have won the Ballon d'Or in 2009. And Bayern Munich was already emerging from a crisis period and was doing very well, reaching the final of the Champions League. Imagine adding Xavi to Schweinsteiger, Müller, Robben and Ribery in the midfield. Inter or Chelsea would have had a much harder time in the decisive matches. At the same time, without Xavi, perhaps no one would have considered Pep's Barcelona as the greatest team of the 21st century. By the way, in 2013, Pep himself took charge of Bayern Munich and within a year realized that he was missing someone for his new project. Xavi was already 34, but Guardiola was absolutely confident in the veteran's seamless adaptation to German football. Otherwise, the management of Munich would not have approached him with an offer to double his Catalan salary, but Xavi declined. The second choice for Pep's position was another midfielder from La Liga, Xabi Alonso. He was signed instead. Upon joining, the Basque player felt right at home in German football. It seems that Xavi would have easily played for Bayern Munich under Pep as well. But it appears that in his late years, he simply couldn't be bothered to change leagues and wanted to remain faithful to Barca. In fourth place, the failed transfer of Steven Gerrard to Chelsea in the summer of 2005. The player wanted to leave after the glorious Istanbul UCL final. In many ways, it was because he understood that at Liverpool there would only be rare cup victories, while becoming the champion of England and truly filling his trophy room was more likely at Chelsea under the guidance of Mourinho. With the most promising coach and unlimited financial influx from Abramovich, Chelsea seemed like a super project and a potentially defining club. In reality, it turned out that way. Another reason for Gerrard to leave Liverpool was the head coach. In the summer of 2004, Benitez replaced Gerard Houllier and immediately disappointed the club's leader. Before getting to know Stevie G, the Spaniard approached his mother with a question. "Tell me, does Steven love money very much?" This was his way of testing the ground for a new contract. Gerrard did not appreciate such an approach. There was no conflict, but there was also no trust. I don't think Rafa Benitez liked me as a person. I'm not sure why, but that's the feeling I got from him. I can pick up the phone and speak to all of my previous coaches except for Rafa. Meanwhile, the head coach of the Blues was obsessed with the idea of creating a midfield triangle of Lampard, Gerrard and Makelele. The London club had already sorted out the terms of Gerrard's future contract. It remained to convince Liverpool. Abramovich was willing to set a new British transfer record, but the Reds were persistent. In July, Steven grew tired of it all and officially requested a transfer, another level of pressure. The fans went crazy and on TV, they showed how they burned Gerrard's shorts. But the player himself was determined. He wanted to play for Chelsea no matter what. And then something happened. Something clearly happened behind the scenes because Gerrard suddenly seemed to change his mind. He announced that he was staying. According to the official version, he was convinced by his father. However, in England, many believe in the conspiracy theory, according to which criminal authorities from Merseyside intervened at the last moment. For them, the transfer of the club's main star to the capital team would have been a personal insult. They contacted Stevie and explained to him very clearly not to even think about leaving, whether you believe it or not. In 2005, Gerrard finished third in the Ballon d'Or voting, while Lampard came in second. It seemed that if they had been in the same team during that period, Chelsea's dominance in midfield would have been guaranteed against any opponent. That's why many regretted that the transfer didn't happen. However, let's not forget how many years the England national team coaches struggled to properly position and benefit from the Gerrard-Lampard duel. It didn't work out quite well, and there is no guarantee that Mourinho would have done significantly better. So perhaps in Stevie G's club career, everything happened for the best. The fans forgave him and even grew to love him again. Although he may not have led the Reds to the championship, he is still a true legend of the club. Third, Leo Messi, who failed to move to Manchester City. In the summer of 2021, the Argentinian's contract with Barcelona was supposed to expire. The Catalans performed poorly in the Champions League, and Leo was clearly unhappy with what was happening at the club. Pep, according to the press, was considering the option of inviting Messi to his Manchester project. The bosses at City wanted even more. After the 2-8 defeat to Bayern, Messi informed Barcelona of his intention to leave the club. journalist insider Marcelo Backler, known for being the first to report on Neymar's move to PSG, claimed at the end of August of 2022 that Leo wants to play for Manchester City. Another marker was the news that Messi allegedly told his close friends and former teammates at City, Aguero, about his desire to change clubs. Barca was very tense and didn't want to let Leo go. The club's then sporting director, Ramon Planes, stated that Messi could only leave for 700 million because he did not notify his intention before May 1st, as stated in the contract. The player side protested. After all, the season was special due to C19, so Messi's lawyers demanded an extension of the deadline from May 31st to August 31st. The dispute was resolved by La Liga. On August 30th, it was announced that the clause was still valid. This cooled the enthusiasm of the Sheikhs. 700 million was too much even for the royal Saudi family for a 33-year-old player at the time. On September 1st, Manchester City released a statement that they are not ready to take Messi if they have to pay for him, since his salary would already be a huge burden. However, the project didn't die. After all, Messi had only 1 year left on his contract with Barcelona. After that, he could have moved for free. Towards the end of 2020, news emerged that Manchester had developed a 10-year plan for Messi, in which the player was supposed to become an ambassador for the City Football Group after his career. However, by the summer of 2021, it seemed like the Sheikhs had lost interest in this idea. There is also a version that the transfer didn't happen, surprisingly, because of Guardiola. Allegedly, Pep doubted Messi's ability to work hard in training and contribute defensively, although the player himself promised Guardiola in a personal conversation to fulfill all the requirements. As a result, in the summer of 2021, Messi ended up in Paris, not Manchester. What do I think about this story? Well, the move to PSG certainly didn't leave any legacy for Messi. Yet, under Guardiola's guidance, Leo could have been in the top form in the top league for a couple more years. Pep would have figured out how to adapt to the veteran, and it is not excluded that Messi, had he joined Man City, would still be playing in England to this day. Ronaldinho could have ended up at Manchester United, Chelsea or Real Madrid instead of Barca. Let's take all these three stories from 2003 and put them in second place. Sir Alex decided to get rid of Beckham, who had started putting himself above the club, and used the money to buy the Brazilian superstar. But then, Madrid intervened in the race for the Wizard, and the Red Devils decided to pull out. Additionally, Ferguson was disappointed in the player's main negotiator, his brother, who first said one thing and then believed that England was not sustainable for Ronaldinho. "I don't want to deal with liars," said Sir Alex. The negotiations were initially going so well that the players at Manchester United were told that Ronaldinho would soon be their teammate. The Brazilian even flew to the UK. Paul Scholes remembered. "We were all excited. Ronaldinho, what a player. I think he was coming from PSG at the time, and we were all going to get to play with him, and he is going to bring something special, almost like what Eric Cantona brought to the team." Then 3 days later, we were playing against him and all trying to kick him because he didn't sign for us. There is another version of the transfer collapse, voiced by Quentin Fortune, who occasionally played for Manchester United back then. "I think we got it wrong by bringing Ronaldinho in at the wrong time of the year, as it was raining that day. He arrived at Manchester Airport. Maybe it was summer anyway, but if we would have timed it with the right day, it could have been a different story." Chelsea came with a full duffel to Paris to get Ronaldinho. The delegation had the top-ranking official, although no one recognized Abramovich. They arrived in cars, came to the PSG office. Roman was wearing jeans. He always behaves modestly, dresses modestly, looks modest. They didn't recognize him. People claim that Chelsea agreed on Ronaldinho's transfer, but it was hindered by the fact that at the time, the Blues were not only luring superstars from all over, but also taking away Manchester United top manager Peter Kenyon. Kenyon was the manager of Man United at the time, and Ronaldinho was announced as the #1 option for United. And Peter said, "If Ronaldinho doesn't join United and I later join Chelsea, and he does too, then my reputation in England will be ruined." Abramovich chose Peter Kenyon, so Ronnie didn't end up at the mega-ambitious Chelsea to save the reputation of their future executive director. Funny enough. But even funnier is the story of Ronnie not moving to Real Madrid. There was a report in the press that Paris preferred Beckham as the new superstar purely based on looks. Allegedly, the Royal Club rejected the Brazilian because they considered him too ugly. According to President Florentino Perez's entourage, this transfer would have had a negative impact on the image of the Madrid Giants. Frankly, it sounds ridiculous because Any human person would have clearly favored Ronnie over Beckham, and it's also evident that Madrid didn't have a vacant spot in the lineup for David in his preferred position, as we have already discussed before. On the other hand, Ronaldinho was much more versatile, however, they still chose David. Paris was assembling not a team of champions based on sporting principles, but a pop group of famous football players, and the results turned out accordingly. The first Galacticos project didn't work out too well. In short, all three clubs regretted not getting Ronnie for whatever reasons. After all, he worked wonders at Barca. Such a magical attacking player would have helped Madrid, Man United and Chelsea win even more trophies and expand the fanbase of any of these clubs worldwide. Well, the first place goes to the famous story with the broken fax machine. Supposedly, the reason why David De Gea didn't move to Madrid in 2015. The goalkeeper's contract with Man United was expiring. He didn't want to extend, and Real Madrid was not only willing to pay, but also to give Keylor Navas in return for De Gea. In short, all the conditions were in place for the Spanish player to return to his homeland. Even the clubs had agreed on everything, but then there was a hassle with the paperwork, resulting in the missed transfer deadline. According to different reports in Spanish media, Real Madrid either arrived a minute or half an hour late. The Madrid side blamed Man United for the incident, claiming that the English club submitted the documents to the FIFA transfer system too late. On the other hand, Man United argued that it was Real Madrid's fault because they had to make urgent amendments to Navas' contract at 23:40. After failing to complete the transfer on time, Real Madrid tried to use their influence and ask for an exception to the rules. In England, clubs are sometimes accommodated in specific cases, but not in Spain, so even the authority of Flo and his connections couldn't help. The fact story is most likely a tale, as the essence of the transfer system is to convert as much documents as possible into online. Clubs that have agreed on a transfer don't send each other papers, they input the data simultaneously into the system. The system verifies the documents, and if everything is correct, it registers a deal. A fax machine shouldn't play a decisive role here, so it's very likely someone's joke or an attempt to shift blame, which over time turned into a meme. Although, if the same malfunction existed, it would be worth putting in the Madrid's museum. After all, the Royal Club with Navas won 3 Champions Leagues. Besides, Keylor made it into the best 11. That is, without the Costa Rican, Madrid would have had one less trophy for sure. So it seems such failure turned out to be beneficial for Madrid. At least David would not have improved the already impressive results of the Royal Club in the second half of the 2000s. But at the same time, Navas in the Premier League could have faced lots of struggles. The Costa Rican is shorter than De Gea, and it would have been difficult for him to compete at the top when it comes to set pieces. In short, Madrid did not lose because of the failed transfer, yet Navas won significantly. As for De Gea, there are 2 options. He could have glowed up in Madrid and become an outrageous goalkeeper, part of the great era of Los Blancos. Or he could have started making mistakes like he's used to, and then he would have lost his place in the starting lineup. This is not United that wouldn't put up with it for so long. After such a thing, David would no longer have got a chance to move to another top club and would have ended up playing out his contract with mid-table teams. And he wouldn't have earned as much as he did under his record-breaking agreement with Manchester United. You definitely remember a few more cool failed transfers? Well, write them in the comments because we almost have a list for the second part. Help us out! If you liked the video, give it a like and click on the bell. See you soon, know the ball.